Welcome to Central. My name's Ricky. I'm the high school pastor here. I'm just a nobody trying to tell everybody about somebody. I'm totally going to steal that line. That's like the best line I've ever heard. So that's going to be my line now. I love it. I'm going to pray, and we're going to get into this morning's message. Let's pray. God, thank you for the people in this room. Thank you for the people who serve, who lead us in worship. Thank you, God, that you've created us all. You've sent your Son to purchase our salvation. We didn't earn it, we didn't deserve it, but you freely give it to all. And God, I just pray that as we gather this morning and as we open up the scriptures, I pray that you would speak to each and every one of us. I pray that you would pierce our hearts, and God, I pray that we would put you on the throne, that we would worship you, that you would be number one in all of our lives, because you are worthy and you are worth it. I love you, Jesus, and I thank you for this opportunity to share. I pray in your name. Amen. So I want to start by telling you a little bit about myself. The biggest event that's happened in my life as of late is I got married in October. And thank you, yes. I married my high school sweetheart. Her name is Carly Crone, and it was on October 1st, 2011. I'm going to show you guys a picture of her right here. This was our first dance together. I know it's a really cute picture because she's in it. And that was our first dance together, an awesome moment. We got married in this church, and it was just a really cool day. A friend of mine performed the ceremony. Another friend of mine, Scott, he sang some songs for us. I had staff here. I had friends and family here, even students here. The church looked beautiful. Everyone did a great job at setting it up. And it was just an awesome, awesome experience. Preparing for marriage there's a lot of unknowns, and it's very emotional. You don't really know what's coming up next. It's like jumping off a cliff. Like, you just don't know what's coming up next. It's a very emotional time. But there were two instances that were super emotional for us. For me, it was the moment that I saw my wife walking down the aisle right here, okay? When I saw my wife and her mom and her stepdad walking her down the aisle, that was the moment I kind of lost it. It became very real. Like, shoot, we're doing it right now. This is it. And I think I had some dirt in my eyes or something because my eyes were all glossy and I was trying to hold back. And that was the emotional moment for me. There was a very emotional moment for her as well. And you'll see it in this next slide. When we were reciting the vows, that's when she realized, I think, like, this is it. This is going to be my husband forever. This is him. And she had this was the moment that it just broke through, and I know that she just felt like, this is it. He is going to be my husband. And she may have been thinking, shoot, a little bit, but we did it. We sealed the deal. If you see the next picture, here it is. Here's me sealing the deal. Bam, there it is. Sealed the deal. Okay? That day, I entered into a covenant relationship with my wife. I entered into a loving relationship that is binding until death. And leading up to this event, leading up to this wedding ceremony, I was thinking a lot about those vows. Here, I want you to hear the vows that I stated to my wife. I said, I, Ricky, take you, Carly, to be my wife, to have and to hold from this day forward. I'll always love you, honor and cherish you, and put your needs before my own. I've count the cost. I'm with you to the end. As God is my witness, I give you my promise. We took traditional vows and we changed them up a little bit and made our own vows out of them. And the reason why is because coming into this ceremony, we wanted to make sure that we meant every word that we said. I've seen what happens when the covenant is broken. I've felt the sting of divorce. I've seen the pain that it causes a couple. I've seen the pain that it causes a family. I believe that this covenant is supposed to be binding until death. And so coming into this ceremony, we wanted to make sure that we knew what we were promising one another. And so we thought much about the promises that we were going to make. Weddings are fun. There's a lot of cool things involved in a wedding. There's a lot of meaningful moments, tossing of the bouquet and the first dance and your best man's crazy speech. All those moments are really cool. But the most meaningful moment in a wedding ceremony is that moment where you make the vows and you enter into that covenant relationship with your spouse. A covenant, you'll see in your notes, is an agreement that brings about a relationship of commitment between two people. And throughout the Bible, God describes his relationship with us as a covenant relationship. That word covenant is used about 300 times in the scriptures. And there's this little Hebrew word, hesed, that explains covenant very well. It's this Hebrew word that, in this hesed, describes a love that is unending, unbreaking, loyal, steadfast, faithful, a love that is eternal, that never ever fails. That is hesed. And throughout the Bible, God continually tells us that this is the kind of love he has for us. God says things like, I will never leave you or forsake you. God says things like, I will be your God, and you will be my people. And nothing can separate you from my love. Behold, I'm with you always to the end of the age. This is covenant language. Let me give you an example of a covenant in Scripture. If you could turn in your Bibles to Exodus 19, starting in verse 3. Here we see the Mosaic covenant. This is what it says. All of Israel is gathered at Mount Sinai, and God is entering into a relationship with this people group, Israel. He's calling them his own. This is what it says. Thus you shall say to the house of Jacob, and tell the people of Israel, you yourselves have seen what I did to the Egyptians, and how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possession among all peoples. For all the earth is mine, and you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words that you shall speak to the people of Israel. So Moses came, and he called the elders of the people, and set before them all the words that the Lord had commanded him. And all the people answered together and said, all that the Lord has spoken, we will do. Here we see a prime example of a covenant in the Bible. And the terms of the covenant are simple. I will be your God. You will be my people. And what's so amazing about this is that even though they didn't deserve it, even though they didn't earn it, God is offering himself to them. And all they have to do is respond, I do. In this case, it was the multitudes. And so they responded at the end of this verse, we do. And they entered into a covenant relationship with their Creator. If you are a Christian, then you have entered into a covenant relationship with God. Jesus has purchased your salvation. At one time, you were far. At one time, you were lost. At one time, you were dead in your sins. But Jesus came and he purchased your salvation, and he made you a child of God the moment you believed on him. And all of a sudden now, you have a relationship, a covenant relationship with the Father. Are you excited about this? Amen, right? The Bible goes on to describe us, the church today, and it uses similar language that we see in Exodus 19. It says this about us, about you, Central Christian, 1 Peter 2:9. It says, you are a chosen race. You're God's covenant people. You are a royal priesthood. You are a holy nation, a people for his own possession, that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who called you out of darkness and into his marvelous light. You are God's covenant people. And as the church, we are Christ's bride. Now, the problem with being human is this. God is faithful to his bride. He never breaks his promises. He never breaks his covenant. But his bride is often unfaithful to him. When I was getting ready to get married, people would come up to me and they'd say, Ricky, are you sure you're ready for this? I'd say, yeah. And they'd say, well, just so you know, your wife could be difficult at times. I said, okay, and I thought about that. And then now I thought about this passage, and I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe there's going to be difficulties, but my wife is not going to be nearly as difficult as Jesus' wife. Okay, Jesus' wife has issues, all right? Jesus' wife has a history of turning her back on him. Jesus' wife has a reputation of going after other things instead of being faithful and loyal to him. And what's so sad about this, whether it's Israel in the Old Testament, that's God's bride, or the church in the New Testament, God's bride, they often exchange God for something else. And nothing in all of creation even compares to God, but they still do it anyways. Jesus' bride has a reputation of being unfaithful. And our unfaithfulness to God, our unfaithfulness to the covenant is called idolatry. When we are unfaithful to God, when we breach the covenant, when we search for fulfillment outside of our Creator, we commit what the Bible calls idolatry. That's what I want to talk about today, is idolatry. And my hope is this: one, that we be able to expose the idols in our life. Two, that we would take those idols, surrender them to Jesus, and smash them. And three, that God would reign and rule and be replaced back on the throne of our hearts. So the first thing we need to do is this. We need to define what idolatry is. Go ahead and open your Bibles to Exodus 20, starting in verse 1. This is what it says. And God spoke all these words, saying, God's about to speak some words that we know very well. These words used to be up in schools all across the nation, right? These are words that we know. God is speaking audibly for everyone to hear. And this is what he says: I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. He starts off by saying, let me remind you of who I am. I am the Lord your God. If he was talking to us today, he'd say, let me remind you of who I am. I'm the one who bought you out of your old way of life. I'm the one who set you free from your slavery to sin. I'm the one who endured the wrath on the cross that you deserved. I'm your propitiation. I'm your expiation. I'm your atoning sacrifice. I'm the one who set you free. Therefore, in light of who I am and what I've done, verse 3, you shall have no other gods before me. As the one true God of heaven and earth, God cannot and will not tolerate the worship of any other so-called gods, lowercase g. This command sounds kind of crazy because reality is there's only one living God. There's only one creator, and it's the God of the Bible, the God that we worship here at Central Christian. The problem is this: human beings are very good at creating their own gods. And I'm not talking about just physical idols, like let's cut down this tree, carve it, and worship it so that we'll get more rain for our crops next year. Okay, I'm not talking about just those kind of physical idols. I'm talking about everyday objects, whether people or things or even emotional feelings that become God to us. Every sin that we as humans commit is the result of taking God off of the throne and replacing him with something or someone else. And the moment we do that, we breach the covenant. So what is a God? I want to give you a definition that's been helpful for me and in my own life in identifying idols that I might have. A God, this is in your notes, is whatever is favored or loved, feared or served, delighted in or depended on more than God. Martin Luther, the great reformer, said, to have a God is to have something in which the heart entirely trusts. Let me give you some examples of common gods that I see in our culture. The first common god that I see is stuff. Americans love their stuff, right? We love stuff. We pile up stuff. We have so much stuff that we need to get a bunch of storage units to put our stuff in, right? We love stuff. Let me ask you, though, do you delight in stuff more than you delight in God? Do you find more joy and fulfillment in material possessions than you do in God? If so, then material possessions have become your God. Remember one time, I got an iPhone. Anybody have an iPhone in here? All right, 5 of you. All right, it's going up, okay? It's going up. Every service, more iPhones. I got this iPhone. I was so excited that I got this iPhone. And it was brand new. And I was driving home one night, and it was really late. I wasn't driving, I was in the passenger seat, and it was like 1 a.m. So we wanted to stop and get a quick bite to eat. So I pulled up to a gas station, went in there, and I was thinking, I'm going to get something healthy. So I got a fruit cup, okay? Those aren't healthy, by the way. They're just sugar and syrup. But I was convincing myself that it was going to be a healthy choice. So I get this fruit cup. I'm like, I liked those when I was 10. Maybe I'll still like them today. And I eat this fruit cup, and then I finish it. And I obviously don't drink the nasty juice in it because it's just gross. And so I set the fruit cup in the cup holder, and then I set my iPhone on the center console, and I fall asleep. It's like 1 a.m. Well, I wake up because the driver had to slam on his brakes. And when I wake up, I'm like looking around, like, what happened? And I look over, and my iPhone's gone. I look down, and it's immersed in this fruit cup juice, okay? Nasty, sticky, slimy fruit cup juice, okay? And I said, what did you just do? You just ruined my phone. He's like, we were going to die. I'm like, but you ruined my phone, okay? So all I could think about is, why was my phone in the fruit cup? That's all I cared about. Okay, and I pull it out, and it's blinking and flashing, and the sound isn't working. I'm like, dang it, it's destroyed. And I remember getting home that night, and it was keeping me up that my new phone was destroyed. Now iPhones are cool, okay? If you don't have one, I'm sorry. But iPhones are really cool. But I was so bummed that this thing was broken, and it actually kept me up. I was thinking, like, my phone's broken. I just wasted money. This thing was so cool, and it kept me up. And then it hit me like, Ricky, you seriously can't live without an iPhone? You're seriously stressed out right now over a little digital device? That phone's not even cool anymore, okay? It's one of the old generations. It's not even cool anymore. Okay, I tell you that story because it's so easy to let material possessions become a source of worship. And let me just tell you this, material possessions make horrible gods. They break. They could fall into a fruit cup and be destroyed, okay? Material possessions, they break down, they don't last, they're cool for a short time. Somebody's always going to have more than you. They're always going to have better things than you. You're never going to keep up with the Joneses, okay? The material possessions make horrible gods. Don't let stuff get in between you and God. The second common god that I see is friends and family. This is a hard one. Do you fear your friends and family more than God? Are you more concerned about what your friends and family think of you than what God thinks of you? Whose approval do you seek? Do you seek the king's approval, or do you seek a person's approval? The fear of man is an easy snare for all of us to fall into. If you struggle with the fear of man over the fear of God, then you're probably a people pleaser. Or if you're young or in high school or in college, then you're probably someone who often gives in to peer pressure because you delight in man. You're more concerned about what they think than what God thinks. Proverbs 29:25 says this, "The fear of man lays a snare, but whoever trusts in the Lord is safe." Don't fall into that snare. Because let me tell you this, humans make horrible gods. Humans, doesn't matter who they are, your friends or family, they make horrible gods. They're not perfect. At some point, they will let you down. At some point and in some way, they will fail you. And so you can't put all of your trust and hope and delight and love in everything on them, because they can't handle that pressure. They are not worthy of worship. They are not gods. Don't fall into the snare of the fear of man, because humans make horrible gods. The third common god that I see in our culture is money. All right, this is the obvious one, money. Hebrews 13:5 says, "Keep your life free from the love of money. Be content with what you have. For he has said, I will never leave you nor forsake you." I like this passage because it reiterates the covenant. Don't love money because God says he'll never leave you or forsake you. Don't find your security in money. Find your security in God. Money runs out. Money loses value. Money can't really be trusted. Where is your security? Who do you love? What is your God? Find it in the one who makes these promises that he's able to keep. God makes promises. I'll never leave you or forsake you. I will meet your needs. I will give you clothing and food. Trust in him. Don't trust in money. Jesus says to us, right? You can't serve both God and money. Who is your master? Has money come in between you and God? Do you find security in your bank account or in your job? Or do you find security in your Creator? The fourth common God, and probably the most common of all, is you, yourself. We are free, independent Americans, right? We have the right to life, freedom, and the pursuit of happiness. An amazing blessing from God. Such a gracious gift that we've been given. But it could also be our biggest curse. You see, we weren't created to be autonomous. We are created to be dependent upon a Creator. And the moment we rely on ourselves rather than God, all of a sudden we have become our own God. Do you depend on yourself more than you depend on God? Do your views in life conquer God's views for you? Do you live according to your own standards, or do you live according to your Creator's standards? A lot of us struggle with us being God, pursuing our pleasures, promoting ourselves, working for our glory, serving us. And sadly, just like every other lowercase g God, you make a horrible God. If you've ever gone through life and tried to do things your own way and said, I'm going to be independent, I'm not going to trust God, my views matter, the way I want to do things is the way I'm going to do things. If you've ever gone through life that way, I did at one point, then you probably realize that when you do things your own way, you only make a mess out of your own life. You are not a good God. Yourself. Are you and your views and your desire for glory or your desire to do things your own way, has that become a God for you? Has that hindered your relationship with your Creator? There are many gods in this world, but there's only one living God. What gods are you serving and worshiping? The question you need to ask yourself today is this: what do I love, favor, or trust more than God? The command is simple, right? You shall have no other gods before me. What comes before God in your life? If there's something that comes before God, then that has become your God. That has become your idol. And bottom line is this: we all have idols. Remember, Christ's bride has a reputation of being unfaithful. We have all breached the covenant. We all struggle with idolatry. If you read the Bible from front to back, you would see over and over that God is trying to call his people back to him time and time again. Don't serve these gods, serve me. Don't waste your time here, come to me. No, this is going to hurt you. This is going to hurt your family. This is going to hurt you for generations. Don't go that direction. Come to me. In my own quiet time, I'm reading Jeremiah, and that's the story of Jeremiah. I want to read you a passage out of chapter 2, verse 11. God says this: "Has a nation changed its gods, even though they are no gods? But my people have changed their glory for that which does not profit." Goes on in verse 28, "Where are your gods that you made for yourself? Let them arise if they can save you in your time of trouble, for as many as your cities are your gods." Gods do not profit, and they cannot save. Don't put your hope and love and trust in them. Well, I have three things that you need to know about idols. In our battle against idolatry, I want to share with you three things that we need to know about idols. The first is this. John Calvin said this. He says, "The human heart is an idol factory." Turn in your Bibles to Exodus 32, starting in verse 1. This passage blows me away. Okay, the people have just been set free from Egypt. They were slaves in a foreign land. They were treated like the scum of the earth. God came in. He did these mighty signs. He brought them through the Red Sea. It says that he led them with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. They saw his power. They saw his might. They saw his salvation. And in chapter 19, he makes this covenant with them. Chapter 20, he says, "You shall have no other gods before me." And just a few days later, look at what they do. Exodus 32. When the people saw that Moses was delayed, they became impatient. He was delayed to come down from the mountain. The people gathered themselves together to Aaron and said to him, "Up, make us gods who shall go before us. As for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we don't know what's become of him." So Aaron said to them, "Take off the rings of gold." Aaron's supposed to be their leader, one of their leaders. Look what Aaron says. Take off the rings of gold that are in the ears of your wives, your sons, and your daughters, and bring them to me. So all the people took off the rings of gold that were in their ears and brought them to Aaron, and he received the gold from their hand and fashioned it with a graving tool and made a golden calf. And they said, "These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt." I think this passage so accurately describes us. One day we can be all about God. We could see his hand at work. We could see his power and his might. But as human beings who are prone to creating idols, our hearts are idol factories, it's so easy for us to quickly turn away, to quickly create something else and worship that. In this case, they were probably going back to a god that they worshipped in Egypt. And that's what we tend to do. We tend to go back to what we were saved from. We tend to go back and worship the things that Jesus died for. The human heart is an idol factory. Proverbs 4:23 says, "Keep your heart with all vigilance, for from it flow the springs of life." Keep a close watch on your heart, because everything you do in life is a result of who or what is ruling your heart. Don't let idols creep up and take charge of your life. Don't go back to those things that you were saved from. The human heart is an idol factory. The second thing you need to know about idols is this: good things often become God things. Idols can be so hard to identify because most of the time they are good things. I'll give you an example in my own life. Sometimes ministry can become my idol. If ministry's going well, I'm happy. If ministry's going poorly, I'm sad. And I wrap up so much of my value and worth and identity within ministry. Even preparing for this message this week, I had to continually remind myself, Ricky, this is about God's glory. This is about pleasing the King. It's not about what other people think of you. It's about the King. God is the audience. Good things often become bad things. Good things often become God things, which are bad things. When I was at Eternity Bible College, I had a teacher who was my preaching teacher. His name is Francis Chan. You probably read maybe some of his books. And Francis told me this story. He said, early on in my ministry, I was asked to come back to the school I graduated from. He graduated from Master's College. He was asked to come and speak at the chapel. And he said he was very nervous about going back to the school because he knew that MacArthur would be there. And MacArthur's a pretty strict dude when it comes to his theology, okay? So he was a little nervous. And he said when the time came for the sermon, MacArthur was sitting in the front row. And he said, I could not stop thinking of him throughout the entire sermon. He said he was just on, what is MacArthur thinking? Is this right? Does he like this? Does he agree with this? Afterwards, he said, I was driving home with my wife, and I asked her, so how do you think I did? She's all, you did horrible. She's all, what was wrong with you? He's like, I couldn't stop thinking of John MacArthur. He was right there. I couldn't stop thinking of John MacArthur. He told us that story because we were young pastors learning how to preach, and he told us, he wanted to remind us, you're going to have the temptation to let preaching become a God thing. Remember, God is the audience. Don't let good things become God things. What good things in your life have become God things? Is it work, school, family, serving in the church? Beware of these idols. And number 3, the third thing you need to know about idols is this: you are what you worship. G.K. Beale says this: what people revere, they resemble, either for ruin or restoration. Goes on to say, because we are created in the image of God, everyone is always, without exception, reflecting either God or a God. If we do not reflect our Creator to our restoration, then we will reflect creation to our ruin. You will resemble what you revere. In the Old Testament, Israel's idols, they were blind, deaf, and dumb. And God says, you become like your idols. You are blind, deaf, and dumb. This is what he says, Psalm 115, 4-8. Their idols are silver and gold, the work of human hands. They have mouths but do not speak, eyes but do not see. They have ears but do not hear, noses but do not smell. They have hands but do not feel, and feet but do not walk. And they do not make a sound in their throat. Those who make them become like them. So do all who trust in them. You will resemble what you revere. If you revere Jesus, if Jesus is your treasure in life, if he is the greatest source of joy in your life, if he is your Lord and King, and you do everything you can by your power and by his grace and through the Holy Spirit to walk with him, you will begin to resemble him. If you revere something else, a person, a thing, an object, a feeling, whatever it might be, you will begin to resemble that thing that you revere. What do you revere? Who do you revere? I hope that it's Jesus. But the reality is this: we have the tendency to turn from time to time. Our hearts are idol factories. So the question is this, as we close: what do we do with our idols? When idols come, what do we do with them? Well, the first thing is this: we need to expose them. The only way to break free from serving this idol, the only way to break free from slavery to this object or from the pain and destruction that this object will cause in your life, is the first thing you need to do is expose it. In your bulletin, you'll have a card. Looks like this. It says, "My idol." Go ahead and take a second right now and write down your idol on this card. We're going to use it in just a second. So if you could participate and write down one idol. Hopefully, through this message, you've determined one idol in your life. Maybe you've determined a few. Write that down on this card. The second thing that we do with our idols is we surrender them. We can't just keep accumulating them. We can't keep trusting them. We can't keep relying on them. We can't hoard these idols. The only way to get rid of them is to surrender them. Jesus, I surrender the idol to you. I want you, I don't want this. I want you to rule my life. I don't want this person to rule my life. You are God. I surrender this to you. Symbolically, we're going to surrender our idols right now. I want you to take that piece of paper and fold it in half, and I want you to pass it to these center aisles right here. And the ushers are going to come, and they're going to collect these idols. And then I'm going to come back up after a song, and I'm going to show you what Jesus does when we give our idols to him. So go ahead and take this time now to pass your paper into these center aisles. Ushers will collect them, and I'll be up. I'm going to pray. God, you alone are worthy of all our praise and worship. You alone are worthy of our lives, our hearts, and God, you're the only one that can't fail. People come and go. Things die out. But you, God, you never end. You made a covenant with us, and you're going to be faithful to us to the end. I pray that when we are unfaithful, I pray that we would repent and come back to you and experience that oneness that you provided for us through your Son. I pray in his name. Amen.
You stood before creation, eternity in your hand. You spoke the earth into motion, my soul now to stand. You stood before my failure and carried the cross for my shame. My sin weighed upon your shoulders, my soul now to stand. So what can I say? What can I do? But offer this heart, oh God, completely to you. So I walk upon salvation, your spirit and life to declare your promise, my soul now to stand. So what can I say? What can I do? To offer this heart, oh God, completely to you. So what can I say? What can I do? And offer this heart, oh God, completely to you. So I'll stand with arms high and heart abandoned, in awe of the one who gave it all. I stand, my soul, Lord, to you surrendered. All I am is yours. So I'll stand arms high and heart abandoned, in awe of the one who gave it all. I'll stand, my soul, Lord, to you surrendered. All I am is yours.
So here I have a bag of literally hundreds of idols. Hundreds of idols in this bag. I don't even know what to think of this. This is absolutely amazing. But I want to show you guys what happens when we surrender these idols to Jesus. He doesn't just take the idols and put them on the shelf and let them collect dust so that in the future we could turn back to them. Jesus knows that the idols suck away at our life. They build a barrier between us and him. They hurt the people around us, and he's gracious and good. And so when we surrender, he doesn't just let them sit. He does something better than that. Jesus takes these idols, which there are many here. He grabs them. He doesn't want these to be in your life. I hope this works. Jesus smashes our idols. Smash your idols. Don't ever let something come in between you and God. It isn't worth it. Let's praise Jesus for smashing our idols this morning. Thank you guys for coming. I love you.
Let's stand together. You choose the humble and raise them high. You choose the weak and make them strong. You heal our brokenness inside and give us life. The same love that set the captives free, the same love that opened eyes to see is calling us all by name. You are calling us all by name. The same God that spread the heavens wide, the same God that was crucified is calling us all by name. You are calling us all by name. You take the faithless one aside and speak the words, you are mine. You call the cynic and the proud. Come to me now. The same love that set the captives free, the same love that opened eyes to see is calling us all by name. You are calling us all by name. The same God that spread the heavens wide, the same God that was crucified is calling us all by name. You are calling us all by name. Oh, 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 We'll have people up here at the front that would love to pray with you after the service. Don't forget the Acts 2 offering on your way out. Have a great week, everyone.